stop scrolling, because while you were living your life, going to work, checking your 401k, worrying about gas prices, the United States drifted into another war. And the reason? It was my opinion. That's it. No formal congressional vote, no clear public intelligence briefing, no structured transition strategy. Just instinct. Let's talk about it. Because this isn't just geopolitics. This is markets. This is oil. This is defense spending. This is your tax bill. This is your retirement account. And if you care about your financial future, you need to understand what just happened. When President Donald Trump was asked why the United States entered war with Iran, his explanation was simple. He believed they were going to attack first. That was the justification. Now, pause with me for a second. War decisions are typically built on layered intelligence assessments, CIA briefings, Pentagon evaluations, diplomatic back channels through the State Department. Historically, major military action comes after weeks, sometimes months of positioning, congressional authorization, coalition building, sanctions, strategy. Instead, what we heard was, "I felt strongly about it." That's not strategy. That's sentiment. And sentiment moves markets fast. The moment war escalates in the Middle East, oil spikes, defense stocks surge, airline stocks drop, safe haven assets like gold and the US dollar strengthen, volatility explodes. Investors don't wait for clarity, they price in fear. But here's the bigger issue. What happens next? When asked about worst-case scenarios, the response was essentially, "We don't know." There was no defined post-war leadership plan for Iran, no clearly articulated transition structure, no named coalition partner, no long-term reconstruction roadmap. And history has taught us something very expensive about regime change conflicts. You can remove a government quickly. Replacing it, stabilizing it, preventing power vacuums, that's the part that costs trillions. And yes, trillions. Because wars are not just fought with missiles, they're financed with debt. Every major prolonged military engagement in modern history has expanded the national deficit. That deficit is funded through Treasury issuance. That issuance impacts interest rates. Higher interest rates impact mortgage costs, credit card rates, business borrowing, and economic growth. This is a chain reaction. Now here's where it gets even more concerning. There was no evacuation plan in place for Americans in the region when airspace restrictions began tightening. When questioned, the explanation was that events unfolded very quickly. But risk management, whether in finance or foreign policy, is built around scenario planning. In investing, you don't wait for a crash to decide what your exit strategy is. In leadership, you don't wait for missiles to fly before figuring out how to extract civilians. Contingency planning is not optional, it's foundational. And yet, we are here. What makes this even more surreal is the contrast in priorities. During the same period, there were detailed meetings about the design and construction of a new White House ballroom, design features, review processes, public meetings, completion timelines projected years out, specific, structured, planned. But the war? Timeline estimates ranged from 4 to 5 weeks to wars can be fought forever. Let that sink in. Even the ballroom had a completion date. Now I want to zoom out, because whether you support this administration or not, this moment reveals something important about governance and markets. Markets don't just react to war, they react to uncertainty. Volatility increases volume, volume widens bid-ask spreads, wider spreads reduce liquidity increases systemic risk. Institutional investors price this in immediately. Retail investors feel it later, usually through portfolio swings that seem sudden and confusing. If this conflict drags on, we could see sustained energy inflation, increased defense appropriations, further expansion of federal debt, pressure on bond markets, and potential interest rate instability. And when debt grows during wartime, governments historically face 3 options: raise taxes, cut spending elsewhere, or inflate the currency. None of those are neutral outcomes for the middle class. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Governance requires layered strategy, a plan for success, a plan for failure, a plan for unintended consequences. And from what we've seen publicly, that framework hasn't been clearly articulated. You cannot run a global superpower on vibes. You cannot manage geopolitical escalation the way you negotiate real estate. And yes, that difference matters financially, because when leadership decisions appear impulsive, global investors reassess risk premiums on U.S. assets. That affects treasury yields. That affects corporate borrowing. That affects small business expansion. That affects hiring. Everything is connected. Now, to be fair, we don't see classified intelligence. There may be briefings and assessments the public hasn't heard, but in democratic governance, transparency builds confidence, and confidence stabilizes markets. Silence creates speculation. Speculation fuels volatility, and volatility punishes the unprepared. So what should you, as an investor, actually do? First, don't panic. Emotional decisions during geopolitical crises destroy portfolios. Second, reassess your exposure. If your portfolio is heavily concentrated in sectors vulnerable to oil shocks or supply chain disruption, understand that risk. If you hold broad index funds, recognize that defense and energy may temporarily offset weakness elsewhere. Third, build liquidity. Cash is not cowardice, it's optionality. Fourth, stay informed without becoming reactive. There's a difference between awareness and anxiety. Right now, the biggest financial risk isn't just war, it's instability without strategy, because war with defined objectives has a measurable framework. War without defined objectives creates open-ended fiscal exposure, and open-ended fiscal exposure creates long-term economic drag. That's the real conversation, not partisan noise, not social media theatrics, economic consequences. Your tax dollars fund this. Your debt burden absorbs this. Your portfolio reflects this. Leadership isn't about reacting quickly. It's about preparing quietly. It's about having a roadmap before you step on the gas. And right now, that roadmap hasn't been clearly presented to the American people. We deserve clarity. Markets demand clarity, and as investors, we navigate reality, not rhetoric. If you found this breakdown valuable, if you want high-impact analysis that connects politics to your portfolio in plain English, then make sure you're subscribed. Hit like so this reaches more people who deserve to understand what's happening to their money. And follow this channel because we don't do panic here. We do preparation, we do strategy, and we stay financially sharp, no matter who's in office.